Hello. Welcome back to Voices of the Peace. My name is Ted Sloan, and I'm your host. And this podcast is all about finding out the stories of Fort St. John and the area. Sometimes you drive down the city and you go, how'd that get there? Or you hear something, you go, how did that come about? And so my job is to go find those people and find those stories. We couldn't do this without the support of our sponsors. Thank you to Urban Systems and Blue Wave Energy. And today our first guest is somebody who is busier than I am. When I was researching questions to ask this gentleman, I found out that he lives in many different worlds, doing many different things, and he still, when I asked him, said, hey, can you come onto this podcast? He right away answered back and said, for sure. So I'm quite excited and quite happy and quite humbled that our first guest this season is Craig Brooks. So we'll talk to him in a second, but welcome to Voices of the Peace. First and foremost, thanks for coming in today. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, I have a ton of questions. The first thing I want to know, though, there's a lot about you on the internet that's very fun. And one of them is that you started playing the piano years ago, and then it said that you've played with the likes of people like Bon Jovi, Kim Mitchell. So I want to know how a kid from Fort St. John ends up on those kind of stages. How did you do it? It's a huge question, but
it's really very simple. And it's what I tell people all the time. I really just got thrown into the music industry by my parents by mistake. I was approximately 11, and a bunch of boxes showed up at Christmas time. And when I opened them, they were drums. And I had never asked for drums. I had never alluded to the fact that I wanted to play the drums. So it was kind of a surprise. And so I set them up, and they sat in our front room for quite some time, and for about a couple of years. And then, because I had a drum kit, these people approached me, some friends of mine, and we want to get in a band. I said, okay, I'll play guitar, because I also play guitar. And they said, well, you can't, because no, we all got guitars, and you're the only guy with a drum kit. So I said, okay, I lose. And so I started playing. And so for the quest for some context, because we lived in the middle of nowhere and a long ways from any rock bands or a lot of music, or maybe there was music playing in bars, I suppose. Of course, we couldn't get to bars. I wasn't even going to school dances hardly yet. I mean, I was in grade 8. So I just went to the library, and there was a book called How to Form a Rock Band.
That's the best.
I wish I still had it. It was amazing, and it was a British book. So I didn't sign out, stole it, because I realized I was going to need it for quite some time. I did bring it back, though, at the end of the year.
Well, that's okay, good. Yeah. I was wondering
if the principle's still out there. And it just told us basically what to do. And so one of the things was we had to practice 20 hours or 25 some hours a week, which meant that every day after school, they would come to my house, we would rehearse. Every weekend, we'd spend the entire weekend rehearsing at our house. My mother would make us breakfast in the morning, we'd sleep over, and we would rehearse all day, all weekend, and then every day after school till dinner time, sometimes after dinner till 9, 10 o'clock. And we met this standard. Then we decided to go on the road. And due to the lack of once again context, or the lack of input of what was going on, we weren't doing what everybody else was doing. We didn't know what the normal thing was. So when we showed up, we were quite different. We had influences like Queen and the Police and of course Canadian bands like Kim Mitchell, very orchestrated and musically challenging pieces of work, Saga, Rush. So we're doing all this stuff, and at first we weren't going over very well, because we weren't playing old time rock and roll, and we weren't playing all the stuff that the Lower Mainland and the Alberta bar bands were playing. But that soon took over, and we just became very, very popular. And we were miles ahead of a lot of the acts in our performance level, in our work ethic. It was us against, we didn't know anybody. We didn't have anywhere to live. So we just lived together, and we lived in hotels our entire life. Like for 8 years or 7 to 8 years, it was just us, 50 weeks a year on the road, and you get good. And then we were in the Vancouver rock scene, and that was when everything was going on there. AC/DC, Bon Jovi, Whitesnake, everybody was there. So us playing these A clubs, we just ended up with them, hanging out with them, playing with them. And my mother even got to meet Tommy Lee one night. And I loved her statement. It was like, that Tommy Lee, he's such a nice boy. It was like, I can't believe I left you alone with that man. It's can't imagine what might have happened. But yes, everybody was there, and so we were part of that scene, and it was an exciting time. Distracting though, but exciting.
Well, you said 50 weeks a year, and so just thinking about you guys were working so incredibly hard. Did you ever get? Did you know that you were working so hard, or was that just no? That's just the life. That's what we chose.
Yeah, it was just what you do. There was nothing else to do. As we got more popular, distractions came along. People got into other things. It was one of the reasons. It was one of the reasons for our demise. It was just we got wives and lives, and everyone gets relationships, and all of a sudden you have to start making decisions about, okay, we're doing this, or are we doing this? And now it's not one for all. It's this is a part of your life. This is a part of your life. And truly for certainly in the initial stages of this pursuit, you have to be, I would say, someone says musicians are narcissistic, and yes, there has to be something, a part of your day and a part of your week and a part of your year where you're the most important. You have to be the most important thing. It's the reason Phil Collins has been divorced 5 times. And he's not, I don't think he's that bad of a guy, but it all looks very attractive and it all looks very romantic. But the bottom line is the music has to come first, or else, because there's somebody out there that it is first for them. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, it was interesting when you said that you guys didn't know any different. You came from here. My question was, did coming from Fort St. John or coming from this area, did that change how you did music, or did that really affect like your work ethic? I found moving away from the city was really interesting because I grew up with a lot of people who worked on farms and things. Their work ethic is second to none.
Yeah.
It could be 2 a.m. If something needs to be done, it's needing to be done. So you guys had an amazing work ethic. And not saying that's the only thing, but how did being from Fort St. John affect your life in the music industry?
Once again, we didn't have the material. We didn't see as much. There wasn't what we have now. I remember being on the road when MTV came out. It's like, okay, these are bands we can model ourselves after.
So wait, you're not old, but like
yes, I am.
Yeah. Well,
no, trust me.
Did you guys?
MTV was not out when we started, and we were on the road. It's like, guys, look at this channel. It's nothing but music. And then we started watching that, and of course, those are all international acts. So we're just weighing ourselves to this international level, as opposed to trying to compete with a bunch of club bands from a place like Vancouver or Calgary or Edmonton, right? Because that's you would have bands to look at and stuff. There wasn't very many bands in Fort St. John, certainly none that were at the time. Now, since we've done this, many bands and many artists have gone on and done, while we were doing this, someone like Tom Cole was also out there pursuing the country role. Mm-hmm. I didn't know Tom. And so we weren't collaborating or communicating with each other. You were very cellular and doing your own thing. And oddly enough, I thought I was working hard. And everybody does. Everybody thinks they're doing their best. That's just human nature. But when I came back after the whole thing crumbled and I went to work in the oil and gas industry, then I realized what hard work was. And that was quite a revelation. And now when I'm pursuing my musical endeavors, I'm a harder worker now than I was when I started, for sure, because I do understand the definition of hard work, and this part of the world personifies that almost every single day. I mean, when you look at it, people, when you tell people your schedules back when I was working in the patch in the field, and they were just aghast. They went, "How could you do that?" And I said, "Because that's what it takes, right?" So I think that it's almost come full circle where now my experience in the oil and gas industry has brought me to a higher level of accountability and the ability to really apply myself even more so in my music. So
Well, I would say that was one of my questions: is how does working in the oil and gas industry affect your music, and does it go the other way? Does your music affect how you work out in the industry? Do the two kind of feed, or are you able to keep the world separate? Do you want to keep the world separate?
They're very separate. Yeah. I don't. I try not to share too much of my musical personality in my work. It just I don't know. I feel that I have to be a certain type of person when I'm performing, and I don't want to be that all the time because that would be exhausting for everybody, including me. So there is a bit of a persona. There's a reason that my, the title on my songs are CC Brooks and not Craig Brooks, is because when I'm playing, I perform as CC Brooks. And then when I'm done that, all that gets put in a closet. And then I get up in the morning, have a coffee, and I go to work, and I do my job as Craig Brooks for whoever I'm working for. And I do try to keep them separate for sure.
I applaud you. That sounds like sounds like you are very organized, which is something I'm working on every day. So, okay. Well, a question then. When you said you had these boxes show up at your house, how did you get good at the drums? Like, if you had never played or were more interested in the guitar or piano?
I wasn't really good at the drums. I was just the only guy that played them.
Mm-hmm.
So how I got good was the same way as how the band got good. When we got our first record deal with BMG, with another band after Simon Chaos had quit, we'd started another band called Giant, which we found out was actually a band called Giant. We owned the name, so they bought the name off us, and we used that money to start our new album. And then we got a new band name called Point of Power, released through BMG in Canada and Japan for a very brief moment in time. And when we were recording there, we spent 3 months recording, and I was working in a music store at the same time. And I met a drum teacher that was there that I found was really, really inspiring. And he taught me how to breathe. He taught me about my posture. He taught me about my endurance and just really being intentional in how I played. So over the period of that time, I just played every day in the studio because, these guys we're working night shifts and stuff, and I'm still a day shift guy. By this time, I'd already had my daughter was born, and I had other things going on. So yeah, I just worked at it day in and day out for about 6 months, and then I got on the road, and I would have practice kits, and I just played. When I was at the music store all day long, I just played. I just sat there with a pad, and I played and played and played and played, and then all of a sudden something happened, and I was completely in control. That comes and goes now because I don't play as much. But when we got together with Simon Chaos this summer, I had 4 months to get ready, and it took me 4 months to get physically prepared to play that music because once again, this is not old time rock and roll. This was Saga. This is Rush. This is pretty complex stuff, and hard drumming, like interesting drumming, because those are songs that we picked to play. So I had to build that stamina up again. And I mean, I never got back to where I was, but there is certainly some muscle memory and something that comes along with that you just keep, and it stays with you forever, it seems like. And especially if you put yourself in a situation where you're on a stage, there's something that happens to all musicians, certainly maybe not all musicians, but to entertainers, and those are two different things. When you get on a stage, you all of a sudden it's time, and something happens. The endorphins or the adrenaline cuts in, and you just do it.
Well, I think it's something you brought up that was really important for people to know is it took you so, like, being a musician, being on stage, and I like how you also said, there's a difference here and there, but it's a lot of work to be a drummer. It's a lot of work to be on stage and to have that endurance. And I don't think sometimes when people look at that, go, oh, that's a great song, going, that is physically a marathon, which they're doing on that song.
Yeah, and when you look at the guys that are out there doing this, like we just mentioned the Rolling Stones, we mentioned Willie Nelson. I mean, these guys are still getting up there every night, and they're doing this, and I applaud them for that, because I've noticed that it is getting harder, and some of my friends that are very well known in the industry, that drummers especially, that are in heavy metal bands that have been playing all these years, it is taking its toll. Look at, and guitar players, the same thing. I mean, there is such a thing as too much playing, and being able to maintain that and keep that is very key to me. People ask, if what would happen if you couldn't, talk, or you couldn't see, or you couldn't hear, what sense would be the one thing you would be lost without? And certainly the thought of not being able to play would that would diminish my life by quite a bit. I would have to retool my existence, because it's such a big part of my life, right?
So just thinking of of the Def Leppard drummer, you must have an appreciation for musicians who get something happen to them, and then they do have to pivot, or that you would know more than more, going, oh man, Keith Urban can't sing for 6 months. That would be devastating.
Absolutely. Somebody, when you look at somebody like Linda Ronstadt, who lost her voice, she can't sing anymore, and she's one of the most beautiful singers of her time, and that'd be a crusher, man. Like it would be tough. So I'm very thankful for every time I get a chance to play, and every time that somebody wants to hear my songs. It's never lost on me. Doesn't matter if I got back. We just got back for my birthday in Nashville, and got a chance to do some really interesting things there. But one of the greatest things I did the other day was I went to my old friend's house last weekend, and we went and sat around the fire, and there's some other players there, and we all took turns playing songs and had some percussion and some drinks, and I woke up the next morning, I was still giddy. It was just like, this is such an honor. It's just such an honor to play, and to have the ability is and to continue to do it, and have a circle of friends that are so supportive, to have a music community that's so supportive of what we do. Very, very lucky indeed, and I do not take it for granted, that's for sure.
Well, speaking of lucky, and you also mentioned the word thankful there. Something like, I remember growing up, and when I started really becoming aware of music, Dear John had just you'd done your big release party, and it was exciting because I was also going, I'm from Fort St. John, and this is a big event, and then I watched you guys track a few places, and so I was always thankful that growing up I knew that I would never go into music, but I went into the professional acting world, but I also watched you, someone from here, be a professional, which is neat. I looked up to you that way. So my question is for young, do you have any advice for young people from this town? Or secondly, how have you watched? Let me phrase it. Do you have any advice? Let's start with that one for young musicians coming up, because I wanted to say thank you, because you helped pave the way that way.
That's really nice. Well, as we know, my son is a professional musician now, so I guess he would categorize as a young musician in my eyes. So he's in his mid-20s, and I think once again, it's the work. You have to want to do the work. It has to be a priority. You have to realize that there will be a cost. There always is. That's why the earth doesn't tip over on its axis. It's that life is a balance. So believe me, anybody that has received great success has paid a great price. It just seems that no matter, sometimes it might not look like it. You'll see somebody's like, that would have questionable talent, let's say, for some reason has become extremely successful, but that will catch up to them, because without it actually being there for real, it will catch up to you, and it will be taken away. There are people, like I said, I use Phil Collins as an example. I think $47 million in alimony so far, and counting, because he's got another girl that's taking him down the river right now, and he's elderly and stuff, but he's paid a price for that. So I do remind young musicians that there is, I would say that I would say that rich and famous is always what people look for. Rich is the prize, and fame is the price. Because not many people don't get tired being famous. It takes a toll. So that would be one thing. The other thing is that at this time more than ever, you can do it yourself. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody is showing up at your door to sign a contract and putting you in a limo or taking you in a jet and making you a rock star. Those were things that happened a long, long time ago. It was one of the demises of our band. Is many of the people in our band were under that impression that the people that were working with us were there to help us. And the reason they were there is they were there because we were making them money. And the moment we stopped making the money, they had little or no interest in anything we were doing. And that's just fair. I mean, why would they really, unless it's your mom or dad? No, they do not care. What they do care about is that you can be a part of something that can help them benefit. And you do need those people. You do need a team. And so you're going to have to decide who that team's going to be. And you do your very best to pick the group that will look out for your best interests while they're looking out for theirs, hopefully equally. Would be the best you could ask for. And like I said before we started, the music business is full of gangsters, robbers, whores, thieves, and no good underbelly snakes that are out there to rob you of your soul. And then there's a bad side. So, yes, it's a really crummy industry. It can be, but you can be in control of a lot of it. And I see Chase the Bear, my son's band, as being an example. They are out there. They are doing the videos, self-producing the videos. They are self-promoting. Yes, they are Sound to 604, and that's great. And everyone goes, oh, that's Chad Kruger's record label. And they go, yes, it is. But that record label is looking to see what those guys are going to do. And they are going to proportionately invest their time and energy as they see that band putting that out. So, just that idea that it's totally in your control. So that means you're going to have to do it all until it gets so big that you can't. And when that time comes, it'll be identifiable and it'll be very clear. And there will be people that'll go, now there's enough room in there for me to come in and we can take a part of that. But just picking those people is very key, because you will, they are part of your life for that scope of time. Whenever you do a musical project, I equate it to a rock, throwing it in the water. So you're building this project, and you've got your songs, and you've got your look, and you've got your message, or whatever you're trying to do as an artist. So what you get to do is every now and then you get to throw a rock in the water. And it's going to make a splash because you're going to promote it and you're going to do this. But then that splash, those ripples will fade. And you got to go get another rock. So if it's your first rock, make it a big one. Patience. There's lots of time. A lot of people are, my son's in the mid-20s. Some of the guys might be just 30. It's like they're going, oh my God, I thought back then I'm 30 and I haven't got a record deal. Like I've failed. It's too bad I felt that way. But it's not true. It is better to wait and have a big rock than throwing a bunch of little ones and making a bunch of noise. Then people just get tired of it and they're going, it's a distraction more than an event, right? Mm-hmm. You spoke of Dear John. We took some time to do that, and we got the biggest rock we could, and we threw it in, and we did make some ripples and we did make some waves. We just stopped making rocks. So. Yeah.
Well, so you've talked about right before we went on air just about how life takes lots of turns and things like that, and so sometimes you have the opportunity to make that big rock, and sometimes you have to make that opportunity, and sometimes you have to look at it and go, I'm going to choose this path instead of this path. And it's interesting. When you're talking about your son, listening to you talk, you've had so much experience in the record industry, and you're a dad, and you have all this. What was it like when your son looked at you and said, I'm going to be a musician? Was it both exciting and nerve-wracking, or was it terrifying? Or
he didn't tell me he was going to be a musician.
Okay.
He showed me. I was driving past the Lido Theater, and there was a picture of him standing on a snowbank doing the Captain Morgan on a ukulele. Mm-hmm. And I was going, And I went home to my wife and I said, Connor's playing at the Lido. And we'd heard him, he'd play some ukulele songs. He wrote his first song when he was about 11. I think it was called I Like Pie. Amazing track. Still want to hear that get the full production level it deserves. But so yeah, I went down and he played ukulele, he played some guitar, and he played some piano, because I did the same thing I did to my son as my dad did to me. I made him play piano. Mm-hmm. And it was like, wow. And he'd been doing this in the basement quietly, just doing it. I never really gave him a drum lesson. There was a set of drums in the basement, and he played them. And he made the choice completely on his own. I can honestly say I had little, despite osmosis, which if you look at Tiger Woods' son, Charlie, he shot a 63 the other day. He's 12 years old. There's, okay, something has to do with hanging around with Tiger Woods. I mean, I probably live with Tiger Woods. I'd be shooting a better game too.
Yeah.
So yes, being around me, seeing that this is what happens, this is regular, this is how much you play, this is how much it is a part of your life, probably, I would say, equated to him doing what he's doing. So but it was not intentional, and it certainly wasn't informed. And I joke about it a lot because, of course, I took my kick at the cat when I was his age, and I came back here, and I always told him, I said, well, good for you, son. You're going to make an excellent pipeliner someday.
Oh, the two of you must have some great conversations.
Well, we're truly, I think we're truly in love with the fact that we're both musicians, and I did a show with him during COVID at our house. Yeah. And CN put on, and that was a blast. Of course, you can always count on Connor not to disappoint. He shows up. He's got pink hair. He's, this man understands the medium. Like, he really does. And we just had the best time, and we still do. I'm in conversation with him daily. One of my favorite things to do is get up early in the morning, because I realize I'm a morning guy and he's a musician, so he's a vampire. Mm-hmm. And that's great. So I'll find something really cool, some really great drum lick or some great drummer that's doing something really super, and I'll just say, this guy's practicing. What are you doing? and Andrea's always saying, you be a little more supportive. I said, you be a little more, positive. And I'm going, he's got lots of that. There's lots of people telling him how good he is. I just gotta, I gotta keep him sharp. And we really enjoy. I'm really enjoying watching this happen for him, and he enjoys watching my journey. And I sent him videos of us in the studio a few weeks ago, working with these great players. I'm just dying to name drop these guys, because I didn't pick them, but my producer did, and I don't have their names on me right now, but it's the keyboard player from Brooks and Dunn and the guitar player from Alabama, and these guys are all playing in this room, and I'm just going, well, if there's any problem with these songs, it's going to be me, because everything else was on point, right? And I'm sending this to Connor, and he's like, checking it out, and so we're on the journey together in different ways, and it's really fun.
This is. And I'll try and so when I became a teacher, my dad was a teacher for forever, and it was neat because our relationship slightly changed in the sense that he's still my dad. I look up to him, he's my dad, but we started talking as peers, not peers, but like I understood his life a little bit better. He started understanding me a little bit better. It was neat when that just shifted, because he would do the same thing. I remember I was swamped one day, and I said, "Hey, Dad, I need an English lesson," and he just pulled out the teacher and he went, well, what do you think you're going to do? And I was like, no, I just need you to give me something. And he said, no, I'm the teacher. So it sounds like you and your son have a neat thing in that going. You know a little bit about the industry, so you can help him in your way. And it's a neat next step in your relationship.
Well, I certainly know the play. I literally know to the minute the mistakes I made. I stopped working hard. I started believing that I was special, and I lost my focus, and I let other people dictate my life, and I let other people manage my career that were not interested in my well-being, and I thought they were. So I saw all those things happen. I also gave up too soon. I got scared, and I did feel like it should have happened already, and I was 31, and I literally thought, oh, well, I've failed. I gave it a shot. I may as well get on with it. Many of the people that are in that band now are still playing and are having a rewarding life as musicians. I am too. I just did it I just took a little break, and now I'm in it just about as much as I ever have been. And when I do things, I do them for real. And I'm back in the music industry, but it's just my industry. It's my personal journey, and I have no outcome in mind. I'm honored to be able to play, and as long as I'm able to do that and still create, and God forbid I can keep coming up with, I don't stop coming up with song ideas, then I'm winning. That's the win. Everything else is whatever, right?
Well, okay, I was going to ask, when it comes to singing, and you've talked about being in the studio with some amazing musicians and songs and getting to sit with friends around a fire, could you say, hey, these are some of my favorite parts of the whole process, or is it just the whole thing is my favorite thing? Being
in it's my favorite thing. Being a part of it. If you go, that's why we moved. That's why, well, we didn't move to Nashville. The bank owns a house in Nashville, and they let me stay there, and I really appreciate that. By the way, RBC, thank you very much. But that was one of the reasons that my wife decided, and she did decide, it really wasn't me, that we should have a place there. When you go to some place like that, where I guarantee you everybody that's there, any Uber driver, anybody that's serving you French fries, anybody that's cutting brisket at a smoke place, almost everybody is involved in the music business in one way or another. And it's just great. It's just great to be in it. I love the writing part of it. I love the performing. I love the recording side of it. I'm working with a really talented producer in Fort St. John. He's this best kept secret. His name's Walker Tompkins. And he's doing these amazing things internationally with people. And he's doing it all out of his home out on the Hudson Hope Road. He's a single dad. He's got these amazing songs. He works with me on my songs. So I have that as an outlet. I also have a group of people in Nashville that I'm now working with that are very, very attuned to the industry, have been doing it all their lives. And so, and there's a group of people down there. I have venues that I can play when I go there. That's the wonderful thing about Nashville, is as long as you write your own stuff, you can go anywhere, anytime. Any night of the week, you can find a place, you can put your name down, and you get to sing 2 songs.
That must feel incredible.
It's certainly my bucket list thing was to play the Bluebird Cafe because everybody had talked about it. And I played there twice since then. And to be very clear, not because I was asked and not because anybody knows who I am. That is not how this works. I phoned up at 11:30 and I got my name on the list, and then I lined up at 6:30 and I sat there and I waited for them to call my name, and I got up and played a song. So, but that's how everybody else did it too. That's how Garth Brooks does it, and that's how Trisha Yearwood did it, and that's how it all happens there. And to be sitting in that room and to be sitting on that stage and to not completely blow it was an honor, and to have people down there that can come and play with me. Once again, it's just, wow, it doesn't get any better than this. I can go down there for 2 weeks, and it literally will keep my fuel tank right to the top almost till the time I return. Mm-hmm. It just gets me just fired up. I've got a bunch of new songs on the go right now. I'll be working on them all this winter, and we'll be back there and we'll do it all again. And like I say, no outcome in mind. I'm doing it, and that alone is something that you should never take for it. And anybody that plays an instrument, anybody that has the guts to paint, to put a painting on a wall and show it to somebody, to even sing a song of somebody else's. That takes an amazing amount of bravery. I mean, you're an actor, like to go out there and to act. I've always said that would be something. The only thing I'm more scared of is that than being a stand-up comedian. I would rather be a male stripper in an ice bar than be a comedian, because that is probably one of the most gut-wrenching, terrible things that you'd have to do. So when you look at any art that you do, I just think that it's such a brave thing to do, and then to be able to run into people that are like-minded, and then to surround yourself with those people, which is something that we do in Fort St. John here. That is something that I wouldn't say was prevalent when I was young because I didn't know them, but this is there's a community of very talented singers, songwriters, poets. They're everywhere, and I think that the community is surrounded themselves with each other, and we're there's people like Bruised Orange Productions now that are bringing songwriters in. I was just at one the other night. They bring in people to their home, and there's about 30 people watching this Juno-nominated songwriter. I mean, literally knocked me out. It was just an incredible show. And then tonight we're down at the Legion. We're doing an open mic, and everybody's going to come down tonight. Naomi Shore is doing her second album release at the Lido, and so after this, we're all going to go down there, and we're going to go see that, and that's very special, and Fort St. John is remarkably diverse and remarkably supportive, considering its size and considering it's not. It's not Stratford, Ontario. This isn't a cultural mecca, and no one would even think it. But what there is a lot of people that had a lot of talent, but for one reason or another, like myself, needed to come somewhere where they could make a living and where they could own a home, where the kids wouldn't be in a gang, where you didn't have to drive an hour and a half to and from work, where you could afford to live. That's why I came here, and a lot of people probably thought, oh, I'm going up here and now it's the end of my musical endeavors. Well, everything's here. The venues are here. The recording studios here. There's all sorts of things. There's beautiful theaters here. We have two, all on one street. You can do either one. Brian at the Lido, Brian Kirshner is so absolutely supportive of live music in Fort St. John. Thank God he bought that place off me. No, it's just it's a real anomaly, and you'll go to other towns like Grand Prairie, Prince George. I've been there, and you're looking around. Where's the music scene? And there is one. There's one in every town, but I think this one's pretty special.
Well, I wanted to. Okay, so you said a lot of people come here and they might think it's the end of their music career, and I'm listening and hearing the first wave of your music career. Wave isn't right. You've always been doing it. Did you think when you came back that it was done? How? And my other question is, how'd you get back to it?
I wanted it to be over. I was so sick of it. The only thing I did was met with lawyers and agents, and nothing was happening. I couldn't work because I was a signed band, and it was awful. It was the worst experience in the music industry. You got signed, and it was like, whoa. That is the starting point, but it certainly can. It doesn't necessarily. It is not what people think it is. The record company is record companies are banks that lend you money interest free that you don't have to pay off if you don't make the money. That's it. And anything they put in, they take out before you get paid. Okay. So that's another thing that young artists should understand.
Okay.
I really didn't want anything to do with it. I just got here. I was very, very depressed. I certainly felt that I had failed. I'd attempted to do something, had not succeeded. But I was living in my parents' basement, and I was working as a pipeliner, and then I got a call from the studio that we recorded our album, and he said he was going to sue me for the entire cost of recording it because I had signed this piece of paper that had said I was joint and severally responsible for the debt. And he happened to know that everybody else was broke, but he'd found out I had got a job. So he was going to sue me for $110,000. I just put a down payment on a house, actually, and I was waiting to move into it, so he would have had every legal right to take it. So I offered him my drum kit, which was a custom-made set of AOTs that I had personally put together. It's worth about $10,000. And the low-down piece of crap actually took it. So I had to pack it all up, and I sent it on the bus to him. And that was a sad day.
Yeah,
that was a sad day. So that was about as low as I got as far as not wanting to play. And then I met Randy. I'd known Randy Gee previously, and I came for a barbecue, and he had his guitar, and we should get together and play some songs. And Okay. And then, oh, we should write some songs. Okay. We should go to Nashville and record an album. Okay. I should build a custom-made set of drums that looks like a tractor and does all these fun stuff. Yeah, we'll do that. Let's release some songs in Canada. Sure. And it, woo. And it just started tumbleweed again. And let's go back to Nashville, do another album. Okay. And got that all wrapped up. And that went its course. It went as far as it could without us actually, really what had happened is it got so successful that we had to start doing it all the time, which obviously we couldn't, right? We had jobs. We had, Randy, it's 200 companies you had to run. So that wasn't going to work. So that kind of withered, and I'm still very proud of that. And then I thought, well, now what? And so I said, well, I'm just going to start playing guitar and singing. And that was a rough start. Oof, that wasn't good at all. And then I just started doing that. I started writing more. I met up with a producer in Vancouver that I was very fond of, and we started creating content. And that's just really the track I've been on. And then the Nashville thing came to fruition, and so we're kind of back and forth between those two places, and I do it as absolutely as much as I can. And God willing, I will retain the ability and the focus so that when I can retire, that's what I will do. We'll see.
Well, thank you. And also, thank you because it's neat for me to hear, especially I have a lot of young students who are like, how do I do this music thing? And a lot of them think, well, I can't do it here. And there's truth to that and there's not. It's interesting when I tell young actors in this town, because they go like, can I stay here and act? And part of me says, I love that, but you got to leave to learn, and then you come back and teach. But it's exciting to hear that someone who has a love of music, who has a drive, can find people around the city and go, can you help me, or can I just be around like-minded people, and then also have the opportunity to go, oh my gosh, I'm now in Vancouver playing. Oh my gosh, I'm now in Nashville playing. Like it seems like and you were part of that. You've helped and they've helped you create a musical community up here that fosters and grows young people, and that's
there's also a community. There's a community in Vancouver. There's a community in Calgary. Mm-hmm. There's these communities of people. I work as a drummer in another band that's kind of a corporate rock thing, and there are a bunch of guys that I've known from the '80s, and now we do gigs, and so I'm doing one of those October 22nd in Kelowna, and then I'll get a call and we'll go to Calgary and we'll do a show, and so I get to do that. The guys in Simon Chaos are talking about maybe we should do another show somewhere, and so that's kind of going on. So there's a lot of different things. Me and Walker Tompkins are working together now, and I'm playing percussion and eventually drums for him, because it's time for him to go out and show the world exactly how good these songs are. And so that's going to be an exciting, interesting thing. There's a possibility I'll be opening up for J.J. Shiplet in the fall here at a show that I heard about the other day. His management called me, and I tend to be his opening act because we get along pretty good. So I think 2 years ago I did one for him, and I think we might do that again. So then there's talk about the county fair next year. Mm-hmm. I might put a band in there and front something there. So yeah, there's a lot going on at all times, and it's just it feeds the creative juices for sure.
How small or how big is the music industry? Like it seems like it's small in some ways and massive in other ways.
It's very the part that you're involved in doesn't have to be that big, and it can still be very, very lucrative, and you can be very successful. There's avenues. One of the things that I did with Connor, and he agreed to it, was we put him into Nimbus Music School, and not the engineering or the production side, but the business side. We said, I need you to go to school for this, because it is the music business. Being a musician's great. It doesn't pay squat if you don't know how. And I'm living proof of it. I'm the worst promoter of my music of anybody. I just don't get around to it. I've got all my songs on Reverb Nation. I've got some stuff splattered out in Spotify. There's a couple of tunes on iTunes. There's people that are doing this, that are organized, that are just like me, that are actually making a pretty good penny and paying for their ability to keep recording and keep promoting songs, and paying for their ability to travel and go to industry events, which are very important to attend, because that's where you once again get with the people that are making these decisions. So it isn't that big of an industry. It doesn't have to be that big for you to get your chunk of it. You just have to go out there and you have to learn that side of it. So that is certainly that's an area where I have a day job. It pays for me to do these things, but there's plenty of people that are playing music that you wouldn't even have heard of, that are making tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year through streaming and through other avenues. The music business has changed. It's not what it used to be. So knowing what it is and knowing how to access those opportunities and knowing what to spend your time on is something very key to know. Once again, I'm so thrilled just to do it. I don't tend to focus on that enough, and it's the reason. Short of the fact that they're still not really great songs, it's one of the reasons that I'm not making much money doing it. But I could make more if I just focused on it. So it's out there for sure. And then there's the whole international thing. But keeping in mind, like with YouTube and TikTok and all these things, these are pennies. These are pennies in a wishing well. They are lottery tickets, and yeah, you can buy a lot of them. But if all of a sudden one of them hits. A great example would be Chase the Bear once again. 130,000 hits on their video in 1 week. That's a good start. And then all of a sudden we hear that Underwater is playing as one of the songs for the Vancouver Canucks when they score a goal. Now, the only joke I said is too bad it wasn't a team that scored more goals. But but I'm not a Canucks fan, so go Preds. And they're terrible too. So, but the fact that happened, those things are. That's when those lottery tickets, maybe you didn't get the $1 million ticket, but hey, you got another ticket, or you got yourself $300. You can buy 300 more tickets. Those are those little steps, and they just keep gunning. Every time you get to play somewhere, every time you get to do a show, every time it's another chance for more people to get you, to feel you, and that's that connection you get. I mean, I don't know who you're listening to right now, but I'm listening to Lucas Nelson, Willie's son. Just amazing stuff. We saw him at the Ryman about 2 years ago. Took my breath away. I listen to him every day. Laurie McKenna, this amazing songwriter. Just saw her a few weeks ago. She happened to be in town. These are people go, who? What? Huh? And I'm going, but the music industry, everybody's out there making it. It's not like the record company has you by the neck. You can go out there and create content, and you can get it out to the world, and it can make a real difference. So yeah, long story long, the music industry is small, is vast, but you within your little world can make a big splash by just getting out there and hammering at it. You'd be surprised, man. If it's good music, good craft will get attention. People still know what a well-written song will grab people's attention, and they will capture people's imagination, and they will grab onto that, and they will keep it as part of their lives.
Well, that's when you were talking about watching people, and that's what I've noticed up here. I've got to go. There's a lot of local music if you're looking for it, and live music things, and just you're right. It goes, oh my gosh, that was a great lyric. Well, there's a lot of musicians who pass through this city as well who are fantastic. It's when you hear a good song, it just stays with you for a long time. Absolutely.
And there's somebody nobody knows probably anything about, Deborah Butler, traditional country singer. Deborah's probably around my age, and so just young, just getting started, and she's amazing. And she does an open mic out at Rose Prairie, and she comes and plays at mine, and we always meet each other at these events, and she'll sit down and play it. And every time I hear her sing a song, I just want her to sing another one for me. Tom Cole, absolutely another one. I just go, you've been doing it as long as I have. You continue to create. It's a pleasure to watch Tom and his team, and he's got a group around him. He's got the cowboy poetry going on, and he's got all these, and he's got himself a little bit of a posse, and they're all together, right? And then there's another group out there with Naomi and the Rose Prairie Romance, and they've got their group, but all these groups, they're not gangs, they don't come across town and try to steal the songs. No, they're going, hey, you're doing something, we're there for you.
Yes.
And then you're doing something, we're there for you. Everyone's always sharing my stuff. There's no competition here. Everybody wins. Everybody wins. I've always said there's not enough to go around. There's either not enough to go around or so much it doesn't matter. So really, somebody else's success does not diminish from your ability. Somebody else's good song doesn't mean your good song is not going to receive the attention it deserves. It's not a competitive sport. It's a collaborative sport, and the more that you do that, the richer the experience is.
I've really enjoyed learning, getting older and learning, going, oh, you're not a threat to me. You're a positive collaborator, and I can just sit and enjoy your work. And that's, you could be an inspiration to me.
Absolutely.
Well, we are getting to the end of our time, so I wanted to say thank you. You mentioned that you're not a good promoter of your own stuff, but if I wanted to find your stuff...
If you absolutely wanted to spend the time, most of my stuff I put on something called Reverb Nation, under CC Brooks. And that's it's cheap, and they've been very supportive of my songs. There's another one called Number One Music, NM1, that I put some stuff on there, and some of my songs have got a lot of play on there, tens of thousands.
Wow.
So I like to put my stuff on there. I've got a few songs on Spotify. I'm going to get my ducks in a row, as it were, this winter, I think, and get some help from somebody. I think I'm gonna get Walker involved, and he can kind of hold my hand to get things, make it a little more accessible. I give all of it's free. I think you can pay if you want. Jerry Adolph is the drummer for Chilliwack, and he's got the greatest line. He says, I've been in the business for over 50 years, and I've literally made hundreds of dollars. and so, I'm just happy if people would download it and play it at Sunday Coffee. I'd be absolutely thrilled. But yes, CC Brooks Reverb Nation is a great way to find the majority of my stuff. Or you can just get a hold of me on Facebook. I'll send it to you direct, or I'll just come to your house and play it for you. All sorts of ways we can do it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, sir. Have a great day, and good luck with your open mic at the Legion. I hope it goes well.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. And thank you, listeners at home. This has been fantastic. Thanks to CC Brooks, Craig Brooks, for showing up. And look up his stuff. Also, if you're out there and you are looking, look for Chase the Bear. It's amazing to have locals musicians go out into the world. And if we can support them, it's a great thing to do. Thanks for watching at home. Have a great day. We'll talk to you later.